ages of 8 to 22. This is the beginning of a series of trainings that will eventually see the platform host financial wellness bootcamps in the future. Being in the financial services sector, we identified the gap in financial literacy for children, and as part of our corporate social responsibility, we felt that we could step in and bridge the gap. We are convinced that to assure a more financially aware crop of young adults, it is vital to employ a foundational approach wherein our children are taught vital financial concepts at a tender age. In Zambia, financial education was included in the curriculum in July 2022. We are excited for this and trust that such inclusions will go a long way in guaranteeing financial security. Today, we have participants logged in from Kenya, Uganda, and Zambia. We are excited to hear the diverse views on money. To the parents that have logged in, we wish to say thank you for taking this step in involving yourself and playing a role in ensuring that you are grooming young money leaders. We have various products that as guardians and parents you can benefit from. To the attendees, taking part in such platforms is a step in the right direction, and we thank you for acknowledging that knowledge is indeed power. We hope that by the end of this session, you will be equipped with the right tools to set you off into becoming young money Africa leaders. I would like now to introduce our speaker of the day, Mrs. Lyapa Mbewe. Ms. Lyapa Mbewe is a financial and investment expert with over 10 years of experience. She's also a director and co-managing partner of Money Acumen Advisory, an independent financial consultancy firm here in Zambia. We're excited to have her speak with us today, as she's very passionate about financial wellness, and we trust that she will assist with steering us towards our purpose on all things money. Please feel free to participate through the chat box, and we are excited to hear from all of you. Lyapa, over to you.
Hello, good morning, Agnes. Good morning, Agnes.
Good morning, we can hear you.
Okay, perfect. So morning, everyone, and thank you so much for joining in. My name is Lyapa Mbewe, as earlier introduced. And today we're just going to have a conversation around how to get started in relation to money and also what money can do for you if you place it in the right investments. So I'll just start sharing. And also remember that this can be as intimate as we would love it to be. So just in case of any burning question that you have, just make sure you either unmute right at the end of this particular session, or you can put your questions in the chat box. So just give me a second. Let me just see if I can share my screen. Just hold on for a bit. Okay.
As we wait for Lyapa to share her screen, maybe in the chat section, you could just post your name and which country you're logging in from. We would like to know where you logged in from, and just to give you a thumbs up for participating. Good morning, Zaina. Thank you for logging in all the way from Uganda. Good morning to Elizabeth as well, also logged in from Uganda. I see we have Chileshe Chanda logging in from here in Zambia. Do we have anyone logged in from Kenya or anywhere else? Would like to know where you're joining from. Jonathan, thank you for joining in. Sylvia, thank you for joining in, or logged in from Uganda. Good morning, Jemima, logging in from Uganda. We do take notes that your son is having trouble logging in. Hopefully, he's able to get through as we're getting started. Good morning to Aisha as well. Elizabeth will assist Jemima with getting logged in.
Hello, good morning once more. Apologies for starting a bit late. We're having challenges with sharing the screen, but we can jump right into it. So, like I mentioned, we're going to be having a conversation around your money and just how to get started. So, today's session is Capped Personal Financial Management and Introduction to Personal Finance. Okay, so like earlier mentioned, just feel free to always just put in a question in the comment section, and also remember that at the end of this we will have a Q&A. So if you have somewhere that you can write, please write so that this can be maximized for you. Okay. So the first thing that we are looking at today is just getting started in relation to your financial management journey. And also, what are some of the effects of not being financially literate, and so on and so forth. Okay. So why do we even invest, and why are we even talking about assets and personal finance? So we do have a very disheartening statistics that only 3% of Africans actually invest. And this is all investments combined. So be it government bonds in your particular country, be it stocks and shares and commodities, real estate, every one of them combined, only 3% of Africans actually do invest. So we kind of want to change the status quo, especially going forward in the age ranges of 16 and 22. So you do know that this is the time for you to start learning about what is readily available for you on the market and how do you get started when it comes to money. Okay. So why are we even having the conversation in relation to personal finance? The one reason as to why we're having even the conversation is just to ensure that you as an individual is well equipped when it comes to how to manage your money. And under personal finance, we find components of budgeting. We also find components of investing, saving, and expenses. And also in relation to everything, we want to learn every single component that is under the process of management of funds, which is personal finance. So do you know how to budget? Do you know how to save and invest? And also, do you know how to spend the right way? So we might be talking about spending the right way, but most of us is because we've learned the art of spending, but we don't know that there's actually a right way of spending. And also there's a very simplified way of getting started in relation to your budget, and also the savings and investing aspect. So when we look at all that, we're looking at inherent money habits. So even when we get started to personal finance, when we look at inherent money habits, we are looking at what are some of the habits that you have picked up in the past that you don't know are actually affecting how you look at money. Is it how your parents have managed money? Is it how your parents budget in the house? Are there certain things in the house that are done a certain way that you don't realize that you've subconsciously inherited? So there might be certain parents in certain homes that overstock their pantries. So that is a money habit that they have implemented that you find that subconsciously in the future you will implement also, when you become an avid stocker of essentials in the house. Why? Because other parents have fear of one day losing their income. So you find that as and when they have money, they go ahead and shop prior so that they can stock up their pantries, waiting for, a rainy day. If a rainy day were to happen, they are not lacking in terms of essentials. So those are some of the inherent money habits that you might find yourself having. Others is when you've seen your parents maybe budget a certain way, or they spend a certain way, or when it comes to traveling, others you find that their money triggers maybe traveling or eating out or anything like that. So you might take on those inherent money habits. So you want to be very deliberate as you grow older to assess which inherent money habits that you've actually taken on. it's okay to take on certain inherent money habits, but it's also very cardinal that you see over the course of time on which ones are negative and also which ones have a positive effect on you. In other times, you find that maybe parents, certain parents, or in the homes that you've lived in, you find that maybe your parents were highly indebted, or maybe there wasn't like an emergency fund put in place or sinking funds put in place. So because of that, you find that you're carrying that forward with you, where you find yourself, even just with small debt, you don't want to save or invest towards a purchase, but you want to get into debt before making that particular purchase. So those are some of the inherent money habits that you might find. So you want to be very deliberate. And also we do have what we call effects of lack of financial literacy. So the effects of financial literacy can be seen over the course of time as you grow older. So you want to be very deliberate with some of the items that you pick on as an individual and some of the things that you leave behind. So it might be debt, it might be, like I mentioned, good inherent money habits, insurance, for instance. Other people might actually be scared or not very open-minded to insurance, maybe because the time maybe a parent passed on, the insurance company didn't pay you. So even in your older stages, you find that you're even refraining from certain products. Why? Because of the effect it had on you in the past. So the one thing that is much easier for you to learn and unlearn is try to research on products or services or certain items that you've come across in your past and see what you can learn from there. So I just needed to make mention of effects of either lack of personal financial management or even just some inherent money habits that we might have. Okay. So then our second section is financial acumen and what the importance of actually having a good financial acumen. So when we talk about financial acumen, we're simply talking about understanding the keys to financial success and also creating a financial plan. How can this be beneficial to you? And the difference between someone who's got a financial acumen and someone who doesn't have a financial acumen. Unfortunately, the difference is very prominent. You'll find that there are certain people who you actually know based on their behaviors. They act a certain way, or they budget a certain way, or they spend a certain way. Why? Because they have some sort of what we call a financial acumen. It also goes even when you start working eventually, you'll find that in the same office or in the same environment, one person or both of you, let's say your entire pool, office pool, you all earn the same amount of money. But over the course of time, one of you, let's say by the 15th of the month, one of you has money, whilst the other half of the office doesn't have money, or you're broke, for instance. So what this goes to show is that certain people, no matter how much it is that you earn, will be able to preserve a little bit of that particular income for future use. And there are also people in the same pool that will deplete their funds even before that time comes. So the difference between these two individuals is what we call financial acumen. So you want to get started in learning the very basics of personal financial management so that you can preserve your financial acumen and you can actually stand out as a person that understands the art of money, managing money, and also making money. So under financial acumen, we have what we call a financial plan. And we're going to go through it, 3 very simple steps that can help you get started, and eventually, even in the longer course of time, it can build your financial literacy pool. So step 1 is understanding that everyone has a net worth. So contrary to belief, I do know a lot of us think when we talk about net worth, you think we're talking about the Warren Buffetts, the Beyoncés of this world, the presidents of this world. When they're talking about this person is worth millions or billions of US dollars, we attribute net worth to that particular section of society. But contrary to belief, everyone does have a net worth. So the earlier you understand that net worth is something that you should take personal, the better it is for you, because then you will start learning the art of adjusting it upwards. How do we calculate net worth as an individual, even as a young person? So net worth is on twofold. It's on what you own versus what you owe. So any person can actually have a net worth. The second step is committing to reducing your expenses and also increasing your income and investing. So even if you don't have a fixed income yet, you haven't started working yet, it might be from jobs maybe or work that you do on the side or anything like that, or even allowances that you're given by your parents. In this particular instance, what you want to learn is the value of money, not how much of it you have, but to value money, no matter how little or how much you have. So when you learn that art, you will learn the art of reducing your expenses and also how can I maximize on the little that I have to increase my income, and also start investing. And the third step is consistently working towards adjusting your net worth upwards and attaining what we call financial freedom. From this particular group of people that we have right now that I'm speaking with, I would like us to get to a point where we can create millionaires in your respective currency. We can create millionaires even in US dollars eventually. Why? Because you mastered the art of reducing your expenses and increasing your income and starting investing, at the same time being very mindful of consistently working towards adjusting your net worth upwards. Okay, so the first item that we're looking at is calculating your net worth. Like I mentioned, calculating your net worth is very simplified. As you see on the next page, you see there's a very simplified column on how to calculate your net worth. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to list down all your assets. So definition of an asset is anything if you were to sell today will give you back monetary value. So assets can be in relation to real estate. If you've got a piece of land somewhere or property somewhere, it could be money in the bank, which is cash at hand. It could be your vehicles. Though your vehicle does fall into depreciating assets, but it is also an asset. If you've got, maybe you can even put down your phone if you want to put down your phone, well, because maybe you haven't gotten to the bigger assets yet. So whatever it is that you feel right now can actually bring you monetary value. If you were to sell, you're going to write it down under your asset value. So you find as the asset part, and then you're going to put the value of that particular asset right next to it. So anything that you own, outrightly own as an individual, and you're going to put down the monetary value if you were to resell it today. And once you find the total value of your assets, we're good to go for the first part. And the second part is liabilities. So liabilities is simply what you owe. So if you owe a person, you owe an institution, you're going to write down all the values of everyone and every institution that you owe. When you find these two values, you're going to less. So you're going to less your liabilities from your assets. And the difference that you find is what we call your net worth. So you might not be happy with your net worth. Others might actually be happy with their current net worth standing. But the beauty about it is it gives you a plunge into reality. I'm currently 16 years old. I'm currently 18, 20, 22, or whatever age it is that you are at the moment. It gives you a very beautiful plunge into reality, saying, oh, this is where I am in terms of my current financial standing. Once you get that light bulb moment of how much your net worth is, then it's beautiful then to start adjusting it upwards. You give yourself a target which says, look, by the end of 2022, I would like to adjust my net worth, even by a very small amount. It could be 2,000 or 1,000 or 500 or whatever amount it is that you categorize that you know is realistic to you. That's also the beauty about personal finance. It needs to be as realistic as possible. So calculating your net worth is a starting point, not just now, but for the rest of your life. You need to be very conscious of calculating your net worth at every given point. That way, 5 years from now, you will have 5 years of work to show for based on your net worth. I'll repeat that. 5 years from now, you will have 5 years of work when you look at 5 years of work to show for when you look at your net worth. So if you look at the year 2022, if maybe you were able to make allowances or some work that you do or some business that you run, if you've made maybe like $500, for instance, or $100 or $200 equivalent to your particular currency, you are able to show based on your net worth. Okay, and we'll be able to see it in the next slide. How we get started with personal finance and growing your net worth is simplified by how we actually budget. So I do know a lot of us have come across a little list either from your parents or even from yourself that you write down. So if you've moved out of the house, maybe you're writing down rent, or you're writing down, I need to purchase my personal shopping. I want to purchase this. I need to purchase that. I need to pay for this. I need to pay for that. So there's that little list that we write down. Unfortunately, that list is not a budget. That list is called a spending plan. So unless you learn the difference between a budget and a spending plan, you might be going at it, excuse me, the wrong way. So when it comes to budgeting, there are three components involved in it. So as the African child, before we actually dive into the components, as the African child, we are usually taught to graduate from 12th grade or from high school, then get into university so that you can get a job that is able to finance your expenses. So we have the equation income and expenses. That is really what we're looking out for. So even the day they ask you, you go for your first job interview or you go for a job interview, when they ask you how much do you want to earn, subconsciously you are calculating your expenses. How much is it going to cost me to rent a house? How much is it going to cost me to get to and from work? How much is it going to cost me for food? Based on that particular amount is what you're going to quote the HR person to say, this is how much I want to be earning. So subconsciously, we always have the expenses in the back of our mind, which is okay. But then the problem is the equation has been linked to income and expenses. So until we introduce one very critical part of the budget, which is not just income and expenses, once we introduce this very critical part of the budget, which we call the investments and savings column, then you would have learned to budget the right way. Okay. So budgeting the right way entails that you have an income, little as it may be it $100, be it 1,000 kwacha or equivalent to that, you have it in your income section. So you're going to write it down under your income section, whatever it is that you earn. I hope everyone is actually writing. So what you're going to write down is column A is going to be income. So under income, that's where you're putting down any single amount you would have earned that particular month. Could be from a business that you run, could be from it could be from income if you're working. It can also be from an allowance that your parents are giving you. So you're writing that down as income. So once you put that there, the next column, unfortunately, is not expenses. The next column is for your savings and investments. The reason why we do that is we want to inculcate what we call paying yourself first. So you need to learn the art of removing a portion of your income to keep aside for yourself for the future. So we call that the investments and savings column. So based on the budget that the budget breakdown that you've seen right in front of you, we've come up with a very simplified way of doing this, which is a 70-20-10 rule. With a 70-20-10 rule, it allows you to ensure that, look, your expenses are usually bigger. So we say 70% goes towards your expenses, but then there's a 20% also that you can put towards your entertainment. So your entertainment is maybe you want to buy something for yourself or anything like that. And then the 10% is strictly for your investments and your savings. So now that you are slightly younger, you want to maximize. You can always have the 70-20-10 rule in the back of your head, but when you're younger, you've got less responsibility, at least I like to believe most of us might have, but also let's not turn a blind eye to some people that might have responsibility. But if you fall in the category of not having responsibility or anything like that, and most of the money is just used for expenses on yourself, then you want to maximize on the money and go half and half, where we say 50% for your expenses and 50% towards your investments and savings. You need to start investing as a young person. So always ensure that your budget has these three columns. The first column is your income section. How much have I made this month? The second section is my investments and my savings. And then the third section is my expenses. Okay. So, like I mentioned, pay yourself first. Always ensure to pay yourself first. So the 10% or the 50% or the 20% that you're keeping aside is the only money that belongs to you. Why? Because you're paying the lady at the supermarket, you're paying the lady at the movies, you're paying everyone. But the question is, who is paying you? So when you learn the art of paying yourself first, you will put a lot more value on money. Okay. So remember, pay yourself first. So like I mentioned, we've got the income, investments, and expenses sections. So we can go down the screen. So the income bit is income. Income is money earned from the provision of a service or sale of a product. So you find that as you go, you will learn the art of how to make money. So you can make money either from a service that you've provided, so that's exchanging your time for money. So you go into a place, you provide a service, and you are paid off it. And also there are certain times where you actually have a product that you sell, and the funds got from that particular sale is called an income. So whichever way that it is that you find on how to make money, you also want to maximize on it. So every time you get paid, you want to attribute that particular money that has come to you, you want to look at it as seed and not harvest. So every money that you have, you want to look for an opportunity to grow it the more. Okay, that's where your investments and your savings comes in. And investing, the definition of investing, as we go down the screen, you'll find the definition of investing is securing your tomorrow today. It is the art of making a money placement for the benefit of a return. So this money, that particular 20% that you're putting aside on your budget, this is the only money that belongs to you. So we have the mentality of liking to, give away money to everyone but yourself. So every time you spend, please put it in the back of your head that you're actually giving away money. So only unless you learn how to keep money for yourself in terms of investing, that's where financial freedom starts, and that's where net worth being adjusted upwards is actually prominently seen. Okay. So the next part is spending. So spending is categorized into two. We have the fixed and we also have the discretionary expenses. So fixed expenses are things that you will need, that are considered needs, whilst discretionary expenses are considered as wants. So when you look at certain items that are needs, you find that getting to and from a workplace is considered a need. So when you put that down in your budget, that's under transport. So that's a need. Why? Because you do need to get to and from work or to and from wherever it is where you attain your source of income. And also there are certain items that are discretional that don't apply every single month. Like I found a new pair of shoes, that is considered a want. I needed to buy a cap, I needed to buy a dress, I needed to go for a concert or anything like that, that is considered a want. So unless you learn the art of the three things that we always put into perspective. Do I have a roof over my head? Do I have food in my fridge? And also, do I have transport to and from my place of work? These three are considered needs. Anything else is considered a want. So even when you're spending, you want to spend the right way. Okay. So learn the art of also what we call delayed gratification. So anytime you come across some money, you don't want to spend it right there and then. You want to learn the art of delayed gratification. What is the time value of money attached to this particular money that I have in front of me. If I delayed just a bit, delayed my spending just a bit, how far can this money go and how much can it grow by? So for every $1 that you spent today, you've actually spent a futuristic value of that money that it could have grown to. So you always want to have that in the back of your head. It also helps you in the long term when you start having access to even bigger money. So every one of us feel we can start investing when we start making more money. But if you don't control your spending right now with a small amount of money, guess what? You won't control your spending then when you have more money. So always just have that in the back of your mind. Okay, so like I mentioned, learn the art of investing. The next thing that we, just to summarize our conversation, is learn the art of earning, learn the art of investing, and also learn the art of spending. So once you learn how to earn, once you learn how to invest and how to spend, you find that these three can solve a lot of your problems eventually. And even when it comes to this particular process, you want to understand that it needs to be simplified to your own understanding. When it comes to budgeting, a budget is not supposed to be complicated. Even if we put it in an Excel sheet or anything like that, it's not supposed to be complicated. It's supposed to be simplified. Why? Because you as the end user, as it's supposed to understand it. So if maybe I'm an expert in Excel, if I can do my budget in Excel, that's also okay. There are also people that would rather have it in a notepad where you just know how to write it down. Another person knows how to use their phone by, either typing it out or using an application like Money Manager that you can download. So those particular different ways of budgeting can help you depending on your level of understanding. But the goal is to simplify. And the other next thing that you want to look out for is being patient. And this can be attributed by what we made mention. Remember to always practice what we call delayed gratification and not instant gratification. If you go into a store, you buy a pair of chinos or a pair of pants or a dress or anything like that, and you spend $10, for instance, or you spend $5. That particular amount that you have spent is never coming back. But if that money is placed in the ground as seed, it is going to mushroom into a tree that will be able to earn you more fruit, which is more money. So you always want to learn the art of the future value of every penny that you spend, because that money is not coming back. So be patient. I do know we have a lot of trends that are running around, that we see around. It's either the latest iPhone, or you want to go to the most happening parties, or you want to travel around with your friends, or anything like that. You want to buy the latest fashion or anything like that. But just to bring it down to reality, there'll always be something better. So the same way we had the iPhone 8 at some point, and that money that you spent on that iPhone 8 went, is the same way we have the iPhone 14 that everyone is anticipating. So are you always going to be keeping up with trends, or do you want to put your money in the ground in an investment vehicle where it starts multiplying for you, that even eventually in the longer course of time, you're able to actually afford certain things? And the other one thing that I need to make mention is you need to stop putting pressure on either your guardians or your parents. You strike deals with them. If you give me this much money, I do know that to clarify someone that's thinking, or just being put as motivation out there. We have a case study in relation to Warren Buffett. I want you to read up on Warren Buffett. So Warren Buffett is attributed to as a billionaire right now, but his funds or his finances did not come overnight. He only became a millionaire at the age of 55, but the man started investing at the age of 11. So if we look at him investing at the age of 11, we can always, if I were to put it in a case study of a Zambian context, at that time when he started investing, the Zambian kwacha and the Zambian US and the US dollar, sorry, were 1 to 1. So $1 was equivalent to 1 kwacha. So you find that there was really no excuse even for our grandparents to start investing at the time. But the thing is, they did not practice what we call delayed gratification. They were spending as money came in. So if this person called Warren Buffett started investing at the age of 11, he was putting in cents and small notes of US dollars up until the time that he realized that, look, the stocks that he was buying at the age of 11 have appreciated via a culture of what we call capital appreciation. And in the longer term, the stocks that he had been progressively buying from the age of 11 are what has multiplied to make him a millionaire and eventually a billionaire today. So what he learned is whatever money I get, instead of spending it, I'm going to invest it. So it should remind you that money is not really about how much you have, but how much of it you're willing to put aside for it to grow. So you want to simplify your budget and your personal money management system. You want to be extremely patient because the art of wealth creation is not for people that want to eat their profits tomorrow. It's for people that have a longer foresight and that understand that I might be 17 years old today, I might be 20-year-old today, but I have plans of having bigger money. So when you see me moving money around or putting aside as much as I can, I kind of have a plan, okay? And you want to get started. So you want to start as soon as you can, okay? So that's the first part of building the money, of ensuring that you build a financial acumen and getting started. So our next segment is components of an asset portfolio. I don't know, these are terms that you probably hear from either a much older person or people that are working in bigger institutions or earning a bigger paycheck. But every single person has a portfolio. If you only own a phone, or others maybe that own a car, or the little that you have in your bank account or you have in cash or your piggy bank and whatnot, that also can be attributed to as your portfolio. But the goal is to learn what assets are that you can include in your portfolio eventually. Okay, but what is the definition of an asset? So an asset is a property owned by a person having value and available to meet debts, commitments, or legacies. So I'm going to highlight the very last word there on the next slide, which is called legacies. So when you look at legacies, that is what really takes you through what an asset should be. So you want to get to a point where you're collecting these particular assets so that they outlive you. The reason why we are very skeptical on adding things like a car and a phone or anything like that on your asset list is it might not outlive you. It's not really part of a legacy. So even when you get to a point of when you start collecting assets, you want to collect things that are going to outlive you. So the difference between delayed gratification and instant gratification is to get to a point where you start collecting things that appreciate in value and eventually can outlive you as a person. So you want to that point. So anyone can be an asset. Even it will keep you away from a lot of distractions, and you will get to a point where you start loving the art of valuing money by putting it in things or and property or things that have value that you can even use against debt instruments, or you can use against commitments or even legacies. So components of an asset portfolio, we have on the next slide, you see we have savings, we've got liquid assets, we've got fixed assets, we've got things like insurance, and also we tie these things to objectives, income, and expenses. So the very first bit, which is savings, on the next slide, you see that savings is considered under short-term assets. So under savings, you find things that we categorize to emergency fund, sinking funds, and traveling. So you see it on the next slide. Can we go to the next slide, please? So you see that there's an emergency fund, there's a sinking fund, and there's also a traveling fund. So anything that costs you money should be budgeted for. I'll repeat that. Anything that costs you money should be budgeted for. So the savings account that you've opened with the bank, or at least I'm hoping that at the end of this session, you can go ahead and at least open a savings account with the bank. The savings account attributes for things like an emergency fund or a sinking fund. So a sinking fund is you saving towards a purchase, not you panicking when you want to buy something. You should be able to get into the art of saving towards a purchase, saving towards a vacation, saving towards something that you've always wanted. You open what we call a sinking fund for it. An emergency fund is when you learn how much it is that you spend on a month-by-month basis, you can actually create a fund called an emergency fund, that just in case your loss of income were to kick in, you have like this cushion to fall back on for at least minimum 3 months of survival. Okay, we'll explain that in a bit. And we also have liquid investments. So liquid investments are investment vehicles that are readily available in the market, like bonds, unit trusts or mutual funds, and also stocks and shares. So every country has a stock market. So you want to get started on the stock market. I do know stocks are always attributed to, again, the wealthy in society, but stocks are very cheap. You can buy a stock for as little as less than $1. Best believe you can find that. So even when you go to your stock exchange, whichever respective country you're in, you can actually go into your stock exchange and see and ask around from the stockbrokers how you can get started. I can assure you, you can buy stocks for as little as $50, even as little as $10 equivalent to your currency. So you want to get started on the stock market and use Warren Buffett's story as something that can work for you. So we also have bonds. I do know bonds in Zambia, you can buy bonds as low as 1,000 kwacha. You can get into the non-compete market. So even bonds, I do know even in other countries have that provision where you can actually buy in the non-compete market. So it's not for people that are just absolute wealthy, but it can also be for you also. So you just want to get acquainted to what investment vehicles are there on the market. So in the same breath, where we have stocks and bonds, we have what we call unit trusts in Zambia. In other countries, they call them mutual funds. So a mutual fund is one of the most beautiful accounts you can ever find on the capital markets. So assets, just to give you a bit of a summary, assets are found on the capital markets. And we also have what we call money markets. So savings accounts, when you look at the bank, those are on the money markets. But when we start talking long-term and investing, we're talking about the capital markets. So you can also read up on that. Please write these things down. Financial literacy is something you should take personal. So a savings account with the bank, and please follow me very well. A savings account is found in the bank on the money markets. A mutual fund account or unit trust account is found on the capital markets in investment companies. So a savings account is with the bank, an investment account or mutual fund or unit trust is in the capital markets in an investment company. So you can get 1% in interest on a savings account in the bank, but you can get even up to 15% on a similar account in an investment company on the capital markets. So there are quite a number of fund management companies or investment companies in every single country. And your goal is to look for them so that even if you're putting aside 500 kwacha or $10 or $20 or whatever it is that is equivalent, you can actually put in these very little amounts of money equivalent, and instead of putting them in a savings account, you're putting them in an investment account so that compound interest can work on your behalf. We'll get to compound interest in just a short bit. So then we've got fixed assets like real estate and also commodities. So when it comes to real estate, the African child knows about real estate. So the first thing, if I told you that I'm going to give you $50,000, the first thing that you want to do is I want to buy a house, or I want to buy property, or I want to buy land. That is okay. I do know we have been very well taught on real estate, especially from inherent habits. You've heard it from your parents or from your peers or everyone around you that the first instinct when you get money is you want to buy property. So it's just one of the investment vehicles on the market. It's under fixed assets, but we do have these other investment vehicles like bonds, unit trusts or mutual funds, and also stocks and shares. And also, you will need protection, which is insurance. So insurance can be on health insurance. It can also be on your assets. If you own a phone, anything that costs you money should be planned for. So if you own a phone, if right now your phone were to be stolen, or your laptop were to be stolen, or your car were to be stolen and whatnot, you have to start from scratch. But with protection, it means that you are taking what we call a risk management approach now, so that if anything were to happen to something that you spend so much money on, you can easily replace it without spending money on it. So you want to take insurance very, very seriously. Okay, so the next slide will show you that there's a difference between emergency funds and sinking funds. So an emergency fund is considered savings, cash at hand. You see that on the next slide. So a savings account allows you to have access to your money. And also, what is then the difference between an emergency fund and a sinking fund? On the next slide, an emergency funds are for unexpected events, whilst a sinking fund is strictly for expected or planned for events. So an emergency fund is, I'll give you an example of COVID. We all lived through COVID. We didn't know it was going to come. It was a global disaster. We didn't see it coming. But a lot of us suffered what we call anxiety because you didn't know what tomorrow will bring. That is what we call unforeseen or unexpected events. It could be a death of a loved one who was funding you or anything like that. It could be a loss in income. It's for unexpected or unforeseen circumstances. So most of the time, the primary reason as to why we set up emergency funds is for unexpected loss of income. So you find that right now you're comfortable, or when you start working, you're comfortable earning a certain amount of money every single month, but anything can happen where all of a sudden you lose your income. What's next? And research has shown that it might take you at least minimum 3 months to get you your next source of income, or maybe your business would have gone down, or anything that you attribute as a source of income would have gone down. So you need to have like a little bit of a safety net seated somewhere called an emergency fund. So when you start budgeting based on the budgeting equation that we looked at earlier, when you look at your expenses, your fixed expenses, which is a roof over my head, food in my fridge, and transport to and from work, whichever one applied to you will be categorized as fixed expenses. So if it's transport to and from work and survival in terms of food, that becomes your fixed expenses. So if maybe they are coming to 1,000 or 2,000 kwacha or whatever amount it is, you're going to then multiply it by 3. So when you multiply it by 3, it then becomes what you call an emergency fund. On the next slide, you see that to calculate your emergency fund, you are first starting with calculating your monthly expenses, your fixed expenses. Then the second thing is you're going to choose a savings account. So remember, on your portfolio, the only money that's supposed to be seated in your savings account is your emergency money. Everything else is supposed to be seated in your investment account. So choose your savings account. So your savings account at the bank, that's where you're going to put your emergency money. The emergency money could be $500, could be $1,000, could be $10, $50, or equivalent, or $100 equivalent to that particular amount. And then you're going to choose a multiplier. So a multiplier is going to be either 3 months, 6 months. There are people that are aggressive that go even up to 12 months of survival money. Of course, this is not done overnight, it's built over the course of time. And then the last step is you want to start saving towards the fund. You can start with a lump sum where possible. So if you've got like a small amount that you can start with, you put it in your savings account and you start saving towards your emergency fund. The next slide will show you, for instance, if your monthly expenses are 5,500. So this is a bit steep, but this is just for context purposes. So if your expenses are 5,500, you're going to multiply that by 3, then your emergency fund will be 16,500. If your monthly expenses are 7,000 and you're going to choose a multiplier of 6 months, you want 6 months of survival money, then your emergency fund is going to be 42,000. Okay, so that's it on emergency funds. You need to ensure you always have an emergency fund. Reason being, an emergency is not if, it is when it happens. So it's not a matter of if it happens, it's a matter of when. So it is coming, it's just when that we don't know. So you want to be prepared for it. So the next part is a sinking fund. So remember, there's an emergency fund and there's a sinking fund. So 3 accounts we're looking at here: emergency, sinking, and investment account. So a sinking fund is where you say, you know what, I think if I pass a paper or pass my exams or anything like that, or maybe there's this beautiful dress or this pair of shoes that I've been wanting to buy, or a phone or a vehicle or Christmas gifts or anything like that, you open what we call a sinking fund. So you don't want to start feeling pressured where you want to either go and borrow money or you want to go and pressure someone to give you money. You can actually save towards it. If it's January, that means you can save for a holiday in December. If it's January, that means you can save for Christmas gifts in December or anything like that. So you open what we call sinking funds. So a sinking fund could be, like I mentioned, purchase of a new phone or a car, fix the house roof if you have maybe like property, buy a new home appliance if you just moved in, maybe you want to buy a TV, you want to buy a bed or anything like that, or you're even saving towards moving out. You can open a sinking fund so that you don't put yourself under pressure. Start saving towards whatever it is that you are setting as an objective. A birthday or Christmas gifts, you know that birthdays are coming. You can always open like a little fund for it where you are depositing money in smaller bits so that as and when that need arises, you are not panicking. You can always withdraw from it. And also holiday travels. You can travel. I'll emphasize that you can travel. The only thing that's standing between you and traveling is you. You don't want to travel. Why? Because the little money that you earn, you want to spend it right there and then. So you want to put in the context of traveling. So the next part we're going to look at is fixed income assets. So if you have any questions on emergency funds and sinking funds, you can write them down and we'll attend to them at the end of this particular session. So fixed income assets, I'll go through them very quickly, but I just need you to have a little bit of context so that you know that you are not too young to get started. You can save towards this particular minimums, if it's 1,000 or whatever equivalent that you will need as minimums to get into these assets, then you can get right into them. So you're never too young. So the first fixed income asset we're looking at is a government bond. So a government bond, it's the same globally. what is a government bond? It's a lending instrument. It's where the government of your respective country just issues out a tender and says, look, we're looking for money. If anyone has money out there, please lend us some. We're going to give it back to you with an interest on top. The beauty about government bonds is they're usually low risk. Why? Because the government usually prioritizes its local investors. So you become a local investor as compared to international investors. So you find that because they're constantly coming back to ask for money from you, they are actually good at paying back. So it's a lending instrument. The same way you lend someone money and you tell them after 30 days or after a month, please give it back to me with this particular interest. So that's how it works. It's literally just a lending instrument. And the beauty about it is it has a fixed income. So they communicate to you upfront to say, this is exactly how much we're going to give back to you after X amount of time. Okay, so it is also medium to long term. You find that government bonds run from 2 years even up to like 15, 20 years. So you can choose, do I want to go in for 2 years? Do I want to go in for 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years? The 10 years are upfrontly told to you. There's also, it's also income generating. Why? Because on top of the interest they'll pay you at the end of that working relationship with them, they'll also pay you what they call coupons. So maybe every after 6 months or every after 3 months, they'll pay you a coupon. So a coupon is just additional money to say, thank you for investing with us. Here's a little something that's paid for in cash as you wait for them to give you back your money and the interest. And the beauty about it is also, can we go to the next slide, please? The beauty about it is also what we call capital preservation. So capital preservation is where instead of spending this money that I have, I'm going to put it somewhere so that it makes more money for me whilst I earn the income that they're giving me maybe every 3 to 6 months. And at the end of that working relationship, I get back my money. So it's called capital preservation. The same way if you had money today, you'd want to build a house or buy property so that you're earning interest, you are earning rental income from that particular property. So the difference there is very minimal. It's just that one, in government bonds, you're actually giving them money and that particular asset is stated in monetary value. As real estate, when you buy a house, that particular asset is stated in form of property. But the income that you're earning from a house is called rental income, as the income that you're earning from a bond is called coupon income or coupon interest. But it has the same principles of capital preservation. While even when you buy a house, that house still has value. If you were to resell it, you'll still get back your money. So that's called capital preservation. And that particular bond, when it matures, you still get back your money. It's also called capital preservation. And most of the time, bonds, you can always sell off a bond when you want to liquidate it. So it also has almost the same principles as a house. So I just want you to always look at it from that particular point of view when you're trying to calculate return on investment. Which one will give me better return on investment? Is it a bond? Is it a house? Okay, so when you're getting into government bonds, the one thing that you want to look at is principal. How much do I have? 2, what is the interest and what is the price of the bond, and the coupon rate that they're offering you, and how long, which is 10 year, how long am I going into this particular bond? Okay, so that's just how it looks like as we go down. Can we go down, please? So you see that on the next page, please. So what is being highlighted there for us in Zambia, that's called an auction. So they'll send it out to you. I'm sure maybe you've seen it in the papers or you've seen it on the Bank of Zambia website. Every central bank does this. They always put out an auction, whether you're in Uganda, whether you're in Kenya, they'll always put out an auction and they'll detail exactly how much they're willing to raise or how much they want to raise, how much the coupon, and they'll even tell you which years do you want to go into. So this one you can see there's 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 7, 10, and 15 years. So you can choose. Remember, you can go into this with very minimal amounts. Okay. On the next page, you can see that there are results there. So they'll also tell you the results for that particular auction. So it does look like a lot of numbers, but it's very little information, and it's something that you can always register. So here they're just telling you, this is how much we're giving you in profits, and this is how much we're able to raise from the bond auction. On the next slide, this is just like a very simplified simulation on like 100K bond. If you were ever to put in 100K bond, can we go to the next slide, please? So on the next slide, you see that when you put in 100,000, the amount is 99,000, which is like the cost of the bond. They're telling you that if you give us 100,000, we'll give you the yield to maturity is we'll give you 24.5, which is interest. So it's almost like if you lend me $10, I'm telling you, after 7 years, I'm going to give you back your $10, but I'm going to add interest of 24.5%. So I'm going to give it back to you 24.5% of $10 at the end of 7 years. And on top of that, I'm kind of going to be paying you 12% of the 10 plus the 24.5%, I'm going to be paying you 12% in coupons every single year. So they can choose to pay you quarterly, they can choose to pay you every 6 months, but at least you'll be receiving a little bit of something. That at the end of the 7 years, you get back your $10 and you also get back the interest that the person would have promised you. So on this particular one, you can see that the coupon, you'll be getting 8,500 every 6 months after taxes. And also at the end of the 7 years, you'll get back 169,000. And the total returns that you would have made off just 100,000 placement, you would have made 188,000 in just interest before they even give you back your 100,000. So you can see that that is why we want you to invest and not just either spend it or even in comparison to saving. Investing means that your money is making more money. In relation to this particular bond, you would have put in 100,000, and of the 100,000, you would have made 188,000 on top. So the 188,000 is coming to you plus the 100,000 that you would have put in. So that's what we're calling capital preservation. So you can open the next slide. This is showing if you're in Zambia or if you're in any other country, the first thing that you're doing is you're opening a CSD account with your central bank. I'm sure when you go to their website, you can always type in, how do I open a CSD account, or how do I start with my bonds, my bond processing. So you open a CSD account. In Zambia, it literally takes 3 days. If you're above the age of 18, if you've got an NRC, you don't actually have to be above 18. If you're above the ages of 16, you've got your NRC, you can actually apply. So remember, you need to have a bank account. So you put down your banking details, you open a CSD account, and you just wait for a bond auction. It happens every month. If you've got 1,000 kwacha, you can buy your first bond. Please buy your first bond. It will make me very, very happy. In your respective country, you want to ask, what is my minimum that I can get into a bond? And I do know it's a very simplified process. The only reason why you want to know how to go into the bond market is because you are going where the banks go. So remember, you're going to the central bank. So that means every commercial bank in your country, be it FNB, be it ABSA, Barclays, or whatnot, they also go into the bond market. This is why they kind of give you bigger interest, because they're also going to the central bank. So you are actually now learning where the big guns go. So you as an individual can actually go into the capital markets and do it yourself, other than waiting for the bank to give you crumbs of what they've made in the capital market. Excuse me. Okay, or you can also purchase through your local commercial bank. I do know wherever it is that you've opened your bank account with, they can help you process buying a bond. But like I said, you are creating then competition for them because you're going where they're going. So they might not be very helpful, but ask your relationship manager. Some banks are helpful, some banks are not helpful. But if possible, you can always go direct to the central bank. So just Google how you can buy a bond. I do know almost every central bank in all countries will allow you to go directly there, and the process is very simple. Okay, so that's it on bonds. The other one we're looking at is unit trusts or mutual funds. This particular investment vehicle is where we understand that not everyone has a lot of money. For you to buy a house, you need a lot of money. Maybe sometimes the banks will only give you attention if you want to buy a bond if you have a lot of money. But when it comes to mutual funds or unit trusts, you don't always need to have a lot of money. So these particular funds are what we call wealth creation funds, or an investment account where you get started, where you become an investor. So how does a unit trust or a mutual fund work? So they'll get very small amounts. They'll get your $50 or your $100. They'll get my $50. They'll get another person's $50. They'll get another person's money, and then they'll pool it. So this is managed by a fund manager. Then they'll pool everyone's very small amounts, then they reinvest it into bigger investment vehicles that you on an individual basis might not be able to do on your own. Then thereafter, they're telling you that at the end of each year, because interest is calculated every year, at the end of each year, we will give you part of what it is that we made in the market. But the beauty about it is they're actually giving you more than what the bank will ever give you. So you find that maybe they're giving you 10%, others are giving you 15%. In Zambia, I do know there are actually fund managers that can even give you up to 23%. So what you are doing here is quote unquote rigging the game. So instead of you having to go into real estate directly, you don't have money to go into buying property, you can actually be part of the real estate market through a unit trust or through a mutual fund. Why? Because the money that you've contributed to that fund is also being reinvested in the real estate market, or it's also being reinvested into the bond market or into the stocks market. Okay, so it's just a pool of money that everyone contributes to, then a fund manager behind closed doors is reinvesting it so that you can also benefit from these investment vehicles. It's regulated by the SEC. So each country has what we call a Securities and Exchange Commission. So the Securities and Exchange Commission makes sure that the fund managers that are managing your funds don't run away with your money, or they don't go ahead and gamble with your money. They make sure that they are reinvesting in investment vehicles that are regulated by them so that your money is safe. Okay. So on the next slide, this is where now, as a young person, you want to learn what compound interest can do for you. So compound interest is considered the 8th wonder of the world. We do know we've got 7 wonders of the world, but compound interest is the 8th wonder of the world. What it's telling you is your money can multiply in your sleep through these investment accounts. So this particular table was made on assumption that you're putting aside 1,000 kwacha every month. So in year 1, if you do 1,000 by 12 months, so you're saying you would have deposited a total of 12,000 kwacha, and you would have earned interest of 1,163. Let's say we're basing this off, let's say 18%, for instance. So if you're earning 18%, that means at the year of year 1, you would have made 13,163. So compound interest. So this is what happens in the investment world as compared to the banking world, which is the money market. This one, they're reinvesting your money. So in year 2, what is going into your account is the balance from year 1 plus the money that you would have made, that you would have contributed in the second year. So the 1,000 that you would have put in again in the second year, the 1,000s, which are coming to 12,000. So the 12,000 plus the balance from year 1 is what they're going to give you interest on. So you can see that the interest is actually increasing in the accrued interest column. So in year 1, you would have earned 1,100. In year 2, you would have earned 5,200. In year 3, 12,700, and it keeps replicating itself. This is what we call compound interest. That's how Warren Buffett made his money, and that's how all these big investors that you see are millionaires and billionaires make their money. They make their money through compound interest. Why? Because their money is making more money, and they're making more money off that money that has made money. So you want to learn the art of compound interest. So on the next slide, you see that this is based on a monthly contribution of 1,000. So if you put in 1,000 every single month over a period of 10 years, you as an individual would have only put in 120,000, but the interest accrued would be 256. I'll repeat that. You as an individual would have only put in 120, but the interest you would have made would be 256, meaning you would have made 376,000 in total. Also, remember that compound interest works with time. So the longer time you accord to your money, the more money you will make. So if you look at the second scenario of the same 1,000 kwacha, but if you contribute it over a course of 20 years, you as an individual would have only put in 240,000, but the interest accrued would be 2.8,651,000. And the total you would have made in total is 3.109,651. So that means compound interest favors the young. The younger you are, the more time you have to make money. So if you're currently 16 and you give yourself 20 years, at the age of 36, you would actually be worth millions. You would actually be a millionaire. So the younger you are, the harder money works for you. Why? Because it's a times game. So on the next simulation, on the next table, you see that if you just contribute even a lump sum, this is now you looking at the future value of money. If you just put in 20,000 and you leave it to grow, at the end of the 20th year, you would have made 1 million. Just 20,000, not even putting in more money. Just 20,000, you leave it to grow, you would have made 1 million. You would have only put in 20,000, but when you see in year 1, it would have earned 4,000, then it would have gone to 24,000. Then in year 2, that 24,000 would have made 9,000 in interest, it would have gone to 29,000. Then again, that 29,000 interest would have gone to 16,000. Just the 20,000 would have gone to 1 million at the end of the 20th year. So you want to know what the future value of every single money you're spending can be in 20 years time, or in 10 years time, or in 15 years time. Like I mentioned earlier, we're looking at Warren Buffett being a billionaire now, but he only became a millionaire at the age of 55. This is someone who started investing at the age of 11. So it's called delayed gratification. So it's either you want to be a millionaire or you don't want to be a millionaire, but the onus are on you. Okay, so again, on the next slide, you see that a lump sum of 20,000 over a period of 10 years at the rate of 18% will earn you 145,000. So this is on 10 years. So again, the longer the period, if we go to 20 years, the same amount, if you leave it to grow for 20 years, it will earn you 1 million. If you leave it to grow for 10 years, it will only earn you 145. But if you leave it to grow for 20 years, it will earn you 1 million. Okay, so there's a quote right next to this simulation that says compound interest is a time game and the world's eighth wonder. So the ones that don't invest, the ones that don't invest pay it. So you'll be paying it through debt, and the ones that invest earn it. So you just want to have that in the back of your mind. And the last bit is insurance. So insurance, we've got health insurance, we've got household and personal belongings. You also have business insurance, and you also have life insurance. So you want to understand what insurance can do for you, so that just in case of any unforeseen circumstance, you don't have to start from scratch. Your insurance can always kick in terms of an unforeseen circumstance. Okay, so we'll end with this, which is the financial blueprint. So just coming up with a very simplified financial blueprint. You want to learn with the first timeline there is income. So you want to attain a source of income. You want to at least have minimum one source of income. If you can, increase your income to even 2 or 3 sources of income, that would be really good. But you start, if you've got a job, that job is your primary source of income. If you earn, or when you earn that particular amount of money, you're going to take it to your budget and you're going to practice the 70-20-10 rule. Then under your investments and savings section, you can either choose to get that money and reinvest it into another business where you're earning more income so that your investments are being funded by at least two sources of income. So whatever you do, always make sure that the income that you're earning is financing at least either an investment or another business so that you can have multiple streams of income. The more streams of income you have, the more you can finance your investments, the bigger the assets you can buy in the long term. Okay, so remember to always invest from your income. And also net worth and objectives. You set objectives and targets that enable you to collect assets. 2022, we are in August. You can always tell yourself by the end of 2022, I just want to have at least minimum $2,000. $200. So $200 Zambia equivalent is like 3,200 kwacha. You can even up it and say, I just want minimum 5,000 or minimum 2,000 or whatever equivalent it is. Even if it's just $500 or $1,000, you can always put that as a target at the end of the year. And financial freedom, you want to get to a point where your assets are earning you income and that particular income is paying for your lifestyle. You would have attained what we call financial freedom. So there's a little timeline there under net worth where you say 2022, maybe you started with a target of 50,000. 2023, you've adjusted it to 120,000. You can go down. You can just go down the screen. So 2023, you would have attained maybe like 120,000. 2024, 200, 2025, 295. This is a timeline. Money is not created overnight. It comes with a timeline. You need to learn how to use a timeline so that you can adjust your net worth upwards. Even if your net worth right now is only 1,000, you can start adjusting it upwards. Then the objectives that you can set towards your money is, we can go to the next slide. Your next objective could be net worth goals. I just want to adjust my net worth upwards. Maybe I want to adjust my business net worth upwards. Maybe your business right now is worth 3,000 or 5,000 or 10,000, and you say, I want to adjust my business net worth upwards. I want my business to be worth 30,000 or 20,000. So that could be a goal. Retirement planning, the younger you are, the earlier you need to start planning for retirement so that even you as an individual can pass on generational wealth to your children. Believe it or not, the younger you are, the earlier you can start planning for your retirement. Why? Because retirement is not an age. Retirement is a number. Once you can get to a certain amount of money, you can retire. And remember, using compound interest, if you can hit your first million as soon as possible from compound interest. Remember, we said if you deposit 20,000 kwacha, for instance, or 20,000 equivalent, 20,000 you deposit it in your investment account, your mutual fund or your unit trust, and you leave it to grow over a course of 20 years. If you're currently 16, it means you can even retire as early as 36. You don't have to retire at the age of 60. If you're currently 20, you can retire at the age of 40. Early retirement, you can hit your first million as soon as possible and you can live off that particular money, also inclusive of the other assets that you would have been collecting. So you want to know what your retirement number is. What is my FIRE number? What number will ensure that I retire early, and you want to start working towards it. Other people, you find that their FIRE number, their retirement number is 3 million. The earlier you get your 3 million, the earlier you retire. So because young people nowadays are very entrepreneurial, you find that a 20-year-old is a startup, they know how to make money, they're running businesses, maybe they're selling airpods, they're selling headsets, they're selling shoes, they're selling clothes and whatnot. They're so aggressive when it comes to making money. So if you're aggressive when it comes to making money, you can always ensure that every time you make money, you put some aside, you put it in investment. Very small amounts. If you're putting aside $50 or $20 or $30 every single month, you put it aside, and that particular money is growing in the background. So you want to be aggressive at making money, but you also want to be aggressive at managing your finances. Okay. So it does allow you to retire early. You've seen the Facebook owners or just younger people out there that are making so much monies and all, but it's also because they took a gamble on their businesses, and also they learned the art of investing. Okay, and also there's education planning in the sense that if you ever want to further your studies or anything like that, you can always invest towards furthering your studies. There's home ownership. You can even own your first home at a tender age if you learn how to save and invest. You can buy property. I do know that sometimes there's even land that's very cheap. In Zambia, you find that there's land that is even as low as 10,000 kwacha, 6,000 kwachas, 5,000 kwacha. It doesn't have to be in a very fancy location, but it can be even in the outskirts of your town. Because remember, as time goes by, those places become prime areas. So you want to buy even property that is outside town, outside even where you call your urban areas or whatnot, and wait for it. Remember, time is what creates wealth. Where you are staying right now, it wasn't maybe as lavish as it was 15, 20 years ago. But the person that bought that property had foresight in mind, saying, if I build this property in this particular location, over the course of time, it will be worth millions or hundreds of thousands of money. So you want to have the same perspective. You can always buy a piece of property somewhere, a piece of land somewhere at a very cheap price. Always look out for those very nice deals that you can save towards and buy. And you find that in 10, 15, 20 years time, that particular piece of land will be worth 10, 20, 30 times as much as you would have purchased it for. So you want to start thinking in those lines. Also, travel and passions, you can always save towards your travels and even passions. If you ever want to open a business, if you ever want to do a certain project and whatnot, investing will help you finance even your passions. And also remember to stay away from debt. You want to learn the difference between good debt and bad debt. So when you go to the bank, when you get a loan, that particular loan that you get, what am I getting that loan for? You see that when you start working, you get excited because then you can get a loan at the bank or whatnot. But even when you get debt, there's what we call good and bad debt. Bad debt is when you get debt to finance expenses. Now I'm going to get my first loan and I'm going to buy my vehicle. Okay, how are you going to pay that back? So you're saying, okay, I'm going to start paying it back from my salary and whatnot. In as much as that might seem okay in the interim, but it's considered as bad debt because then that particular asset is a depreciating asset that you would have purchased. But if you're borrowing to reinvest to make more money, then that money is then going to buy you a vehicle, then we consider that as good debt. So it's either you can borrow to invest, or you can actually just open a sinking fund, like we mentioned earlier, and save towards a purchase. So if you're looking at debt, you always want to look at it from that point of view. Okay. So create a simplified budget. That's our next and final slide. So the takeaways that I want you to go with is create a simplified budget, become an asset lover, and understand what it is that compound interest can do for you and what investment vehicles can do for you. Avoid lifestyle inflation. So lifestyle inflation means the more money you have, the bigger you spend. No. The more money you have, the more the assets you collect, the more money you keep aside for yourself. So don't adjust your lifestyle based on your income. When you have more money, you buy more assets. Because at the end of the day, when we're asking you your net worth, we're not looking at how big you spent. We're looking at what assets you have or how much money you've put aside. So that's what differentiates a person that's a big spender and a person that is quote unquote respected in society as an investor. So you want to become an investor by attributing your monies not towards your expenses, but towards the collection of assets. And also, I just want you to become young millionaires and also start investing. So thank you so much for joining me. And that marks the end of our presentation. So yeah, I think, Agnes, we can take in some questions.
Thank you so much, Lyapa, for your presentation. Very insightful, I must say. We've gone from learning how to budget, understanding that we can invest from as low as $1, always having an emergency fund. You spoke to COVID coming and no one expecting it. What happened to the whole world? We were all in a frenzy. But for those that had emergency funds, we saw them being able to cushion that. Pay yourself. I was so happy when you spoke to that, because most of the time we leave out ourselves in our planning and we're paying out, but forgetting to pay ourselves as well. Most importantly for everyone is to be patient. Be patient with the process, but most importantly is to start. However long it might have taken you to get to this point, what is important is that you must start and be patient with yourself. I heard you speak to the millennials being entrepreneurial. We see most of the age groups that we have here are uni students or members that are in their first paycheck, and you have a talent. It could be from braiding hair in uni. Take out from there, pay yourself. And the next line of the budget we saw was that it must go to a saving and not an expense. So I think it was very insightful, and I'm glad that we have taken this initiative to take our youths who we're nurturing into financially equipped adults. We do have a few questions in the chat section, which I will read out. I think the first one is from Christine. She's asking, what is the minimum amount that is for a bond placement in Zambia?
Okay, so the minimum amount in Zambia is 1,000 kwacha. So you can get started. You can go to the Bank of Zambia website. When you go to the Bank of Zambia website, you should be able to find a form called a CSD account form. You can fill it in and you can get started. Either that, you can visit, if you're having troubles with that, you can visit a relationship manager at the bank, or you can visit an investment financial advisory firm. We are investment advisors. You can come and we can help you get started. But with as low as 1,000 kwacha, you can get started. And the process is very, very simple. Okay.
The second one is from Peter Daka. How do you calculate the earned value via compound interest with regards to inflation?
Okay, so every time you're calculating for, for returns, the one thing that you want to keep in mind is what is the moving inflation. So in comparison to when we look at bonds, for instance, so bonds beat inflation by 10%. And this is why you need to get into bonds. Even in Zambia, when you look at the unit trust that we have, unit trust minimum that you can get in Zambia is about 10%. So if let's say our inflation is about 9.5%, you're able to beat maybe that by 0.5%. But that also, we do have unit trusts that go as high as 17%, as 23%, and so on. So you find that most of these investments are actually beating inflation. But the thing is, you need to get into investing either way. Investing is the only thing that will help you beat inflation. If you save, saving means your money is reducing in value. And that's why the only money that should be in a savings account is your emergency money. Everything else is supposed to be seated in an investment account. So always ask the questions when you're seated down with either the relationship manager or the BDM at any of these fund management companies or investment companies, and ask them, what are your rates, so that in the back of your mind, you're always netting the 9.5 inflation rate. But most of our investment vehicles actually do beat inflation by quite a good margin.
Thank you. If we have any questions that may have come up, please do raise your hand. We will enable your audio and video. We'd like to see you, and you could still ask at this point. Also, just to the members that joined, the participants that joined the meeting a bit late, the video will be uploaded on our YouTube channel tomorrow. So the channel is Octagon Africa, and it will be up in case you missed parts of the training. Please do feel free to engage. We want to hear those questions. Raise your hand, and we'll be able to enable your audio.
Okay, maybe just to make it a bit more interesting for someone who's feeling shy, we do have 2 movie tickets to be given away. Is this only applied to Zambians, Agnes, or do we have other countries that are also participating on this?
Okay, so we have 5 movie tickets for Uganda, and we have 5 movie tickets for Zambia as well. And maybe to get it started, I have a few questions for the participants, and just to see how engaged we were. The first question is, what is personal finance? What is personal finance?
So you can either type it in the chat section or you can raise your hand and we will be able to unmute.
It's a Friday. We want to go to the movies. Let's get interactive.
So we have a hand that has been raised.
Please do give us a moment to unmute.
Hello. Morning, everybody. Thanks for the good presentation. I would like to know if you are ready to give us with the presentation slides for the presentation. Thank you.
Hello, am I allowed to answer the question you asked?
To Mr. Muhindo, the presentation will be posted on the YouTube channel, so you should be able to watch it from there. I did not get who is requesting to respond. Is this Chileshe Chanda?
Yes.
Please go ahead.
Your question was the definition of personal finance, right?
Yes, that is correct. What is personal finance?
Yes. It's a process of management of funds which includes budgeting, savings, and investing and spending, as far as I can remember.
Correct.
Thank you so much, Chileshe Chanda. We'll get in touch with you so that you can get your movie ticket. The next question is, what are the components of budgeting? So we were given a rule. So I would like someone to give us the rule in terms of budgeting, the components of budgeting, the rule. Chileshe, kindly drop your hand.
Okay.
Muhindo, is this a fresh hand with regards to the question? The question again is, what are the components of budgeting, the rule? Could someone give us what the rule is?
We have someone in the chat section that has answered. R Majwala. Yes.
So 70, 20, 10 rule, that is correct. We will get in touch with you for your movie ticket. Kindly drop your hands for the next question. And the next question is, what is an asset? I see a hand up from Angel. Please go ahead. What is an asset? Angel, can you hear us? Seems we lost Angel, but in the chat section, we have a response from Tanasi, and the response was an income generating is an asset. Miriam says item of property owned by a person or company regarded as having value and available to meet debts, commitments, or legacies. Kristen says an income generator. Denise, a property that has value and can be used to meet things like FRBTS. A useful or valuable thing or person, says Jesse, or debts. I think Denise meant debts. And then Agnes, Nasazi, an asset is a useful thing. Lyapa, which best response do we have? So the first just said an income generating is an asset. Miriam says item of property owned by a person or company regarded as having value and available to meet debts, commitments, or legacies. Kristen just says an income generator. Denise says a property that has value and can be used to meet things like debt. Jessie says a useful or valuable thing or person. Agnes says an asset is a useful thing. Peter says a resource with economic value. William, an asset is a possession that can generate value. So among the first responses were from Atanasi, who said an income generating is an asset, and Miriam, as well as Christine and Denise. I think we received those responses within the first minute.
Okay. So Miriam, I think Miriam has defined it very well, almost book, almost book definition. I do have Betty also and Faith. Yeah, so there's Betty, Faith, and Miriam. Maybe we can give those three.
Okay, so
how many are we remaining with so far?
For Uganda, I think we close. For the Zambian participants, please do get engaged for the next question. What is the difference between delayed gratification and instant gratification? Zambian participants, this is for you.
We have some hands raised.
Angel, please give us your full name and confirm that you're participating from Zambia. Hi, Angel. We're seeming to have trouble hearing you. The next hand up was from Mr. Peter Daka. Mr. Daka, if you're able to hear us, kindly proceed with your response. What is the difference between instant gratification and delayed gratification?
All right, thank you. Delayed gratification is a situation where you make some earnings and you decide to say, instead of me buying something which can be a liability or having some freedom, you choose to go for an asset that can generate more money, that you be able to buy that liability or enjoyment that you wanted to have when you first got the money. Yeah, that's delayed. Instant is where you choose to say, okay, fine, I don't have an asset which can generate more money, but I want to enjoy and I want to buy this liability. I'll go for it. Thank you.
I think that's good. It's pretty convincing. Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Next question also for our Zambian participants. How can you make money while you sleep? How can you make money while you sleep?
My mic is unmuted. I'll say compound interest. That's what I heard.
Who's speaking, Mr. Daka?
Yes, I would say compound interest. That's one. Also investment in a business. That's two. Thank you.
We keep getting a hand from Angel. Are you able to type in the chat section? Okay, Angel says he's from Uganda.
So there's Chilekwa in the chat section who's saying investing in long-term assets. So that's also a very good answer.
Okay, so Chilekwa, you get the ticket. Thank you so much for participating. And the last one we have is, what is an example of an emergency fund? An example of an emergency fund. Kindly raise your hand and we'll be able to unmute. Just to note that the last question is also for the Zambian participants. Give us an example of an emergency fund. I see Shilesha has his hand up. Don't we have anyone else participating from Zambia? Do we have any other responses, any other participants? Shilesha has already gotten a ticket. Gabriel says a medical bill is an example of an emergency fund. Mukama says a savings account.
Not really. I'm forced. Okay, yeah. So Faith has, but hasn't Faith already won a ticket? Okay, so Stephen has said job loss. I think that is one of the most accurate. So loss of
Job loss. Stephen, you get a movie ticket. In the chat section, Elizabeth has requested that you please send your phone number to the email address that has been indicated there. For everybody that has won a movie ticket, thank you so much for participating and congratulations once again. Okay, so
sorry,
thank you all.
Agnes.
Sure, Elizabeth.
Yeah, we don't have enough winners for Uganda. I think we can have 2 more.
Oh, perfect, perfect. Okay, so the next question for the 2 tickets that are still up for grabs. The first question is, give an example of a sinking fund. And this is for the Ugandan participants. Give an example of a sinking fund. Fastest fingers first.
Hello. Hello, you are getting me? Hello.
Yes, please give us your name and the response.
Yeah, my name is Muhindo. One example of a sinking fund could be a fixed deposit account with a bank.
Lyapa, are we good?
Can you repeat that for me?
I'm saying one example of a sinking fund would be money on a fixed deposit account. Say you fixed it on an account and you are to buy say, a house after a year?
Okay, it is quite detailed, but it is true. It is true. So the sinking fund really is just putting aside money for a purchase, for a future purchase. So yeah, I think that's okay. That's okay. We'll take that, Agnes.
Thank you and congratulations. Then the
Thank you.
last question for the ticket is, give us 3 examples of investment vehicles, 3 asset classes that you can invest in.
One could be in real estate.
Hello?
Real estate. And then bonds. And the third one, I could also invest in unit trust fund.
Congratulations. But are you the same person that answered the previous question?
Yes, so I was just trying to
Yes,
check
please.
if he hasn't dropped his hand, just so that we can spread the tickets across. We have in the chat section, William, who has posted real estate, shares and bonds.
Yes, so we might need to give a chance to another winner. So William, you will take this particular one.
Thank you so much for your participation, and we're glad to hear that even from this engagement, we did have everybody glued and paying attention. We did encourage the taking down of notes. I hope we did that, and I hope ultimately after this engagement that we are setting out into Africa young money leaders who will be financially equipped with the right tools to guarantee your financial well-being. With that said, I would like to thank all of you for logging in and participating. A special thank you to Lyapa for partnering with us on this great cause. As mentioned, it is part of our CSR, and we hope that eventually this platform will turn into a boot camp. It has been designed during school holidays, and it is targeted to children between the ages of 8 and 22. And the idea is that even as parents, we encourage the children to log into such platforms and have them engaged. Thank you so much. As mentioned, the presentation will be posted on our YouTube channel, Octagon Africa. Do like and follow our social media pages for more financial tidbits. Thank you for your attention. Thank you for your participation. We look forward to the next session tomorrow that has the kiddies between 8 and 12. Please do encourage that they log in too. Evidently, such initiatives are helpful and very insightful. Let's nurture other little ones as well as early as possible. Thank you so much. Thank you, Lyapa. If you could have your video on and just say your thank yous and goodbye.
Thank you so much for having me. I really do appreciate being here. And I think you've rightly put it. We are sending young people that are financially literate and ready to take on the world by storm. They know the value of money and they know how to plan for their finances. And hopefully are not going to replicate some of the mistakes that were made by either their parents or their guardians, but they're a bit more money smart. So go out and make as much money as you can through compounding and through investing with the little that you have. So get started.
Thank you so much all and have a great day. To the winners,
Agnes,
please ensure that, go ahead, Elizabeth.
Agnes. Yes, just before we finish, I've noticed that we had some people who have raised their hands and we haven't been able to hear them. So maybe we can hear some last words from Christine and Malama. You can say something, Christine and Malama.
Your contributions, Christine and Malama, would like to hear from you.
Good morning, everyone. I just want to say thank you. The presentation was so great and very insightful, and definitely will come through for the bonds.
Thank you
Thank
so
you
much,
very much.
Christine. Thank you for
Thank you.
participating.
Okay.
Malama, your comment, please. Hello, Malama, are you there?
Okay,
We
I think
lost him
it's
there.
one. Yeah. But I've shared the link to our YouTube page where we will upload the presentation. I encourage all of you to subscribe, and you'll be able to watch even more videos that we've done on the previous trainings that we've had, and basically matters on finance. And for the winners, I remind you the email to send your contacts to is marketing@octagonafrica.com. Thank you, Agnes.
Thank you so much. With those words, thank you so much once again. Thank you for logging in. Thank you for your participation. For those that were able to log in with their young ones, the guardians, the parents, thank you for this initiative and for your participation. Have a great day. And like Lyapa said, let's try and attain those millions in our young age. Thank you and good day.